A big hello to all my wonderful KCET aspirants. I hope you're doing great. And today we are going to complete biodiversity and conservation in one shot. So I hope you're excited. This is a very thin chapter but very important. Yeah. So what do we need to have in our hand? Basically one NCERT and a pen. If you have it ready, then let's begin. So over here, the first thing that is given is about biodiversity, a little bit about the introduction of biodiversity. What do you mean by that? Biodiversity means variety of life, okay, in a particular area, particular time. That is what you mean by biodiversity. It's a variety of life which is there at different levels, my dear children. It was popularized by Edward Wilson. Now there are three different types of diversity. One is genetic diversity. That means, for example, I'm talking about rice. Now in rice, I have different types of rice. So it is a variation within a species. Species of what? Of rice. Okay, so 50,000 rice strains are there in India, my dear children, and 1,000 mango varieties are also there in India. So over here, when I talk about 50,000 rice strains, I'm talking about genetic diversity which is there in the rice. When I'm talking about 1,000 mango, I'm talking about the genetic diversity which is there in what mango. Okay, I have to talk about just one particular species. So species of rice and species of mango over here separately. Now what do you mean by species diversity? It means the variety of species that is there, my dear children. For example, I have two different places, that is Eastern Ghats and Western Ghats. That is Eastern Ghats and Western Ghats. And I am saying that in Western Ghats, the amphibian species is more in amount rather than in Eastern Ghats. So that means the different types of amphibians which are there, they will be more in amount. That is what I am talking about. So variety of species, is example is Western Ghats, they have more amphibian species than Eastern Ghats. Now you have ecological diversity, the variety of ecosystem that we have. We say India is very diverse. Why do we say that in terms of biodiversity? Why do we say that? Because, my dear children, we have different types of ecosystem. If you go to Rajasthan, you get desert. If you come to Kerala, Tamil Nadu and all this area, what do you get? Basically, you have mangroves and also rainforest. Lot of things have been over here, my dear children, which is why we say that India is a diverse nation. So variety of ecosystem, that is what you mean by ecological diversity. Now millions of years of evolution create this diversity. I hope you know that. And species loss is rapid. It is what? Rapid, my dear children. And biodiversity conservation is very much important. So in Los Angeles, the wildfire happened and it created a huge lot of loss in biodiversity. Don't you think it was very rapid? Yes. So we have to be really careful when we deal with biodiversity. We have to take care of the mother nature, then the nature will be taking care of us as well. Now the next slide talks about the organism distribution which is there. Now what is important over here is this distribution of species. So animals basically, they are the ones, they are highest in number. Almost 70% of the organisms are, my dear children, animals. Are what? Animals. Now let's talk about plants. So plants include fungi, algae, bryophytes, gymnosperms, everything. They are around 22%. They are around 22%. Now insects, if you talk about animals, in the case of invertebrates, you know, vertebrates is there, invertebrates is there. In invertebrates, okay, in invertebrates, and insects are the found in most amount, or in general also, if you talk about animals, 70% of the organisms are basically what, my dear children? Insects. Now if you talk about fungi, more species are there, more species than the combined total of fishes, reptiles, amphibians and mammals. That is what you talk about fungi. Fungi also is in very high number. So over here we have a picture. So if you talk about vertebrates, invertebrates, if you see, fishes are the one that are in high amount. Please remember this. Okay, invertebrates, if you see, fishes are the one that is in highest amount. If you talk about invertebrates, then insects are the one that are there in high amount. But if you take both of them together, it will be always insects that takes up a lot of space. So if you talk about animals, insects are the most variety of them. Now if you talk about plants, which we have over here, if you talk about fungi, over here fungi, I don't know why they have put it with plants, but yes, fungi utilizes the most amount of part. Cool. Going ahead, we have patterns of biodiversity. So latitudinal gradients. So over here, species diversity decreases from equator to poles. I hope you know that. In the equator it will be more, in the poles it will be less. So the tropics, 23.5 degree north to 23.5 degree south, have higher biodiversity than temperate or polar regions. Obviously, why is it so? The answer you might get it over here. But Before that, certain examples are there. For example, Colombia, which is more towards the equator, over here there are 1,400 bird species. Now if you go a bit far, that is towards the pole, okay, towards the pole we are going. So New York has 105 species, whereas Greenland, which is there in the poles, is just having 56 species. So over here, as I said, the species diversity is going to get decreased when you go from equator to the poles. So India, if you talk about that, it's in tropical area and it has over 1,200 bird species, my dear children. So what is the reason for this? Why does the tropical area have more diversity than the temperate areas which are there? So towards the pole you find the temperate areas, and the equator you find the tropical areas. So why is it that? Why is it so? Because of speciation and times. So tropics, if you talk about that, it is going to remain undisturbed for a long time. When I talk about temperate regions, there will be frequent glaciations, there will be disrupting biodiversity, my dear children. And because of this frequent glaciations and all these things, what is happening? Disturbance is happening. So do you think that speciation can happen? Do you think variety of species can form? It needs time, but it's not getting the time. Every time it is getting settled in, there are some changes happening. So tropics are the one that remains what? Comparatively undisturbed, whereas temperates are the one that experience what? Frequent changes. Now talking about climatic stability, again, there is less seasonal variation in the case of tropical environment, whereas when you talk about temperate, there are higher chances there's some amount of seasonal variation there. High productivity, that is also there, because in tropic region you get ample amount of solar radiation, my dear children, solar energy, and obviously if solar energy is there, it will be leading to greater primary production, as in plants will be able to photosynthesize, and if plant is able to photosynthesize, my dear children, other organisms which are dependent on the plants, they will also flourish, and the other organisms which are going to eat these organisms are also going to flourish. So you get it? So productivity increases in a chain wise manner, so high productivity is there. Now great niche specialization, that is stable environments encourage species to specialize, reducing competition and increasing diversity. So basically they have a proper resource, so they do not have any a problem for resource partitioning, since they already have a lot of resources. So organisms which are there, they can have their own resources. There is less amount of competition as well, which is observed in what? The tropical areas. In the temperate area, the food and everything is comparatively less. So obviously organisms which are there, they're going to fight for it, and if organisms fight with each other, then they are not going to be present in very much amount. You get it? So these are the things that you have to definitely remember. So these are reasons for high tropical biodiversity. Going ahead, we have species area relationship. So species increases with explored area, but only up to a limit. That is what species area relationship says. Okay, so what I am saying is that, for example, I am in a room, in this particular room. Okay, so in this particular room, if I am looking for a bird, is there any bird? No. But if I go to a park, if I go to a park, will there be a bird? Yes, there might be a variety of bird. If I go to another area which is bigger than parks and which has lots of birds in it, obviously the area is increasing. What is happening? I am able to see more species. For example, from the park I move to tropical rainforest, I will be obviously having more amount of species over there of birds, right? So what am I trying to say is that species richness is going to increase as I am going to explore more area, but only up to a limit, not more than that. And this was observed by Alexander von Humboldt, in South American jungles, my dear children, in South American jungles. So relationship that follows a rectangular hyperbola and is described by the equation log s is equals to log c plus z log a. So I want to explain you this over here. So this indicates species richness. This is the area. So I will say species richness as I go beyond the area. For example, if over here the area is this much, species richness is also increasing, but what is happening? Basically, even if I increase the more area, what is happening? This amount of species is going to stop somewhere. The amount of species richness which is there, it is going to stop somewhere. It is a stable graph that is being formed. It is not going up. Why? Because as I said, there is a limit to it. So I cannot directly say that S is directly proportional to C. Sorry, S is directly proportional to A. I cannot actually put that. But if I put that, I have to put in a condition. That says when I remove the proportionality sign, my dear children, I will put. So this is the sign of proportionality that I converted. Okay. Now A bar, we have z, a raised to the power z. Why? Because it is up to this particular quantity, I can say it is proportional, otherwise it is not. So there is a, it's not completely proportional. That is what you are trying to say when you are putting something like this. Okay, so that's how you get this particular formula. That's how you get this particular formula. And mostly children have this confusion, how do you get this particular formula, that is S is equals to C is equals to CAZ. Okay, CA to the power Z. So this is the reason for that. That means it cannot be completely proportional. If it was completely proportional, as we go up the area, the species richness also should be going up. It should not be a curved shape structure like this. Since it is going to get stable at some particular point, we say it is proportional but not to entire limit. So I will put it like this. Okay, now if I want to calculate, I have to convert into log scale. So over here, when I am converting into log scale, I am going to multiply log with both of these things. So I say log S is equals to log CAZ. And in the case of log, there is a rule. If log is equals to AB, that is A into B, you put it as log A plus log B. Log A plus log B. You have to convert like that. So basically over here, C and AZ is this, A and B. Okay, so how you have to do is that log S is equals to log C plus log A. What about Z? So in log, again there is a rule. For example, it is like this, log A to the power something. Okay, so what you have to do is you have to put like this. You have to put it like this. So the power mark should be coming over here and then log A. So over here, similarly, we are going to do, it was A to the power Z, so we are going to put Z over here. We are going to put Z over here. That's how you get this particular equation which is put down there. Okay, now this represents the species richness which is there. Okay, now what does log A represent? The area. What does Z represent? Z represents this. That is how much amount of thing we have to, that is a slope. It represents the slope. It represents the slope. For example, this is the area that I have to, in this area, how much species richness is there, that I have to find. Then I have to look for Z. What is Z over here? Okay, so that is what you mean by Z. Now C is what? The intercept, the y-intercept. Suppose it is touching over here. Suppose there is a line and that is touching somewhere over here. So this will be the y-intercept, and it is denoted by log C. Cool. So exact thing is being mentioned over here. Listen, S is species richness, A is area explored, Z is slope of the regression line. That is 0.1 to 0.2 for small region, 0.6 to 1.2 for larger region. Depends. Okay. Now C is equals to y-intercept where it is touching. So small regions, it was found that Z values range from 0.1 to 0.2, showing a moderate species area relationship in small regions. In large areas, entire continents, Z values range from 0.6 to 1.2, which is quite high, indicating a steeper slope and stronger correlation. That means it is way high. Okay. Now example, frugivorous birds and mammals in tropical forest have a Z value of 1.15, showing a high dependence of species richness on species size. So if Z value is basically more, that means the species richness and the area has something to do with each other. Okay, that means it is kind of correlated. As more area explored, more species richness will be there. Okay, now when smaller regions you are seeing the Z value is less, that means what? Basically the species area richness is not that coordinated. It's a very moderate level. So this was put down by Alexander von Humboldt, my dear children, and he did by the experiments done in the South American jungles. Okay, so please remember, whenever you get a more Z value, that means you're talking about steeper slope and also higher connection, stronger correlation which is there. Cool. And that is observed in large areas. Now going ahead, we have Abhyas KCET test series. Oh, did I tell you about that? So basically, my dear children, if you have not yet registered for Abhyas KCET test series, I'll recommend you to do so, because you'll get 35 full syllabus and chapter wise tests, and it is very, very important for you to practice questions as well. I hope you know that really, really well. And it is all available for ₹1499. You will get detailed video solution, you will get one-shot revision videos, and there is some analysis of past 5-year paper. So it is not a small thing. It's very, very important. Make sure you're utilizing this. And there is also Lakshya KCET crash course, which is a 21-day crash course. You have to come at our campuses. If you're there in Bangalore, come. Okay, and there will be teachers around you who would help you really, really well. And for the children who are not from Bangalore but still want to attend, we have the hostel facilities as well. Make sure you make use of it. And how do you enroll? You can call to this number, or the link will be given in the description box. You can click on that and get an idea of the whole thing. Works? Chalo. Now, Importance of species diversity. So until now we were talking about species diversity, this diversity, that diversity. But what is the importance? Basically, more diverse communities tends to be more stable. That is what we noticed. So for example, there was tiger, there is rabbit. Okay. So if there is only tiger and rabbit, tiger will eat rabbit. That's all. And when the rabbit population dies off, the tiger population will die off. But what if in this particular area there is deer also? The tiger can basically attack on the deer and eat the deer also at times, and attack on the rabbit and eat the rabbit also. So over here, none of them are going to go extinct. Both of them will be there. The tiger will also be there. You get it? It will be more stable. Stability means what? Less variation in productivity over time, and also resistance to disturbance and invasions by alien species. That is what you mean by stability. Okay, that means the productivity is not going to get decreased. Okay, it is going to be in a stable format. The amount of production that will be there, primary productivity, secondary productivity, the amount of photosynthesis is still being done, the amount of plants which are there for to be eaten up by the organisms, all of its level will be what, my dear children, control. It is not going to be unstable. You get it? Unstable, not unstable, unstable. Okay, so less variation in productivity over time and resistance to disturbance as well. Okay, it is going to show resistance to disturbance. Not any small things cannot bring disturbance in them if they are stable. So more diversity means you're giving them more stability. So now people came in and explained that. So there was David Tillman's experiments, my dear children. According to his experiment, okay, done in a plot, he said that whenever there is high species diversity, it leads to less fluctuation in the total biomass. Whenever the species diversity is high, at that point of time, the total biomass is also not fluctuated very much. And increased diversity contributes to higher productivity as well. So if there are more diversity, more diverse organisms, there is more productivity. That means organisms are going to produce more food, and there will be other organisms eating this, and they will also flourish, and this thing goes on. There is a stability in the ecosystem which is there. And also I'll tell you one more point, that is over here, that is whatever resources are there, it is being completely utilized. None of it is going to be wasted if more species diversity is there, my dear children. So this experiment of his was very, very important. It was usually asked. So please understand, according to David Tillman's experiment, he said that higher species diversity means less fluctuation in the total biomass, and also higher productivity. And also higher productivity, or basically higher stability. Now there is rivet popper hypothesis put down by Paul Ehrlich, my dear children. According to him, he just said that ecosystem, so aeroplane that you see, it is going to act like an ecosystem. Now in aeroplane there are certain rivets, and the rivets are what? Species. Rivets are what? Species, my dear children. So if I am removing few rivets, obviously this is going to cause trouble in the aeroplane, that is the ecosystem. But what if, okay, what if I am going to remove the major rivets, especially from the wings and all, especially from the wings, what will happen? The plane will definitely crash. The ecosystem will definitely crash. What do you mean by that? Basically, the rivets at the wings are the keystone species, are the very important species without which the biodiversity is nothing. You get it? So if I am removing all those things, my dear children, if I am causing harm, what will happen? The ecosystem will also collapse just like this. So it was a hypothesis being put by Paul Ehrlich. It is known as rivet popper hypothesis, where ecosystem is equals to aeroplane and species is equals to rivets. Removing a few rivets may not immediately cause a crash, but continuous loss weakens the system, and losing key species, that is the rivets on the wings, can be what? Disastrous. There is a pucker crash that is going to happen. Cool. Now human activities and extinction. What did human beings do, and how did it lead to extinction, and what is the percentage? So loss of species, speciation is uncertain, but species loss okay, that is not important. Human activities are the major cause. So Pacific Island extinction, over 2,000 native bird species lost due to human colonization. People started living there. That is why almost 2,000, do you understand, 2,000 bird species were lost. They got extinct, and this is known as Pacific Island extinction. Then you know, IUCN list, in according to it, 784 species are extinct in the last 500 years. Out of them, 338 are vertebrates, 358 are invertebrates, and 87 of them are plants. 784 species, can you imagine? Those are extinct in 500 years, just 500 years. So in the next 20 or 10 years, we cannot expect what is going to happen. But now what is most important is this, the recent extinction, the name and where do they belong to. So dodo, which is a bird, it is belonging to Mauritius, quagga from Africa, thylacine from Australia, stellar sea cow from Russia, and the three tiger subspecies Bali, Java and Caspian. Okay, so dodo from Mauritius, quagga from Africa, thylacine from Australia, Seller sea cow from Russia, and the subspecies of tiger, Bali, Java and Caspian. It is very, 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 very important. Okay, will you remember it? Yes. So please remember, Pacific Islands extinctions, over 2,000 native species of bird were lost, and IUCN Red List, according to which 784 species have become extinct by now. And the recent extinctions of this is the most important thing. Okay, you would be asked. Now, the evil caught it, the reason for biodiversity loss. That is what evil caught it. Four things are there, which is the reason for biodiversity, which is why it is known as evil caught it. Caught it means 4. First one is habitat loss and fragmentation. Habitat loss as in, for example, I am a rabbit. I was staying in one particular place. The place where I am staying, it is itself is lost. Some human being is coming and living over here. Can I live over here? No. When I go to other place, other human is living. I do not have space. My dear children, if habitat loss is there, how will they survive? And also fragmentation. Fragmentation means basically what? Big areas I am cutting into different parts and separating it. Over here again, I am disturbing the ecosystem, and this is going to cause what? Huge trouble. So one is that. So primary cause of species extinction is this. Tropical rainforest reduced from 14% to 6% of the earth's land, my dear children. 14% tropical rainforest. 14 to 6. Amazon rainforest being cleared for agriculture and cattle farming. You tell me. It is cleared for what? Agriculture and cattle farming. Okay. Now, obviously, if they are clearing things out, the organisms which are going to stay up there, where are they going to go? You get it? So, habitat degradation leads to due to pollution as well is also one very difficult thing. Now, large habitat fragmentation affects migratory animals and large territory species. So, there are organisms who occupy large territories and they live over there. So, if you are going on fragmenting there, they do not have enough space to live. You know, their whole thing is being disturbed. So, all this thing is going to cause a huge trouble, and this has caused trouble, and this which is why it is there as one big reason of the evil caught it. Okay, habitat loss and fragmentation. Second is overexploitation. So, human greed leads to excessive use of natural resources. For example, I spoke about Steller sea cow, which is there from Russia, right? So, people went ahead and harmed it really bad. Okay, they hunted the Steller sea cow that it became extinct after one point, and also the passenger pigeons which were there, they were all extinct because of what? Overexploitation, my dear children. And even overfishing which is there, it also endangers many marine species. So we would not be doing that. So overexploitation is also one big reason for what? Habitat loss. Now, alien species invasion. What do you mean by that? Basically, there are certain groups of organisms over here. I am bringing some other organism from outside to this. First of all, the organisms which are here, I will call them indigenous species, my own over here. Okay, they are indigenous species. Now, the ones that I bring from outside, they are alien species or invasive species. They are going to invade over here. Okay, so it is introduced species can outcompete and eliminate the native species. So what happens? The organisms that we are bringing from outside, they are going to compete with our organisms and not let them leave. So Nile perch was one thing that was introduced into Lake Victoria, which caused, when Nile perch was introduced, my dear children, it caused the extinction of 200 plus cyclid fish species which were already there. Now you tell me. Okay, second example, invasive species like carrot grass, which is known as Parthenium, lantana, and water hyacinth, which is known as Eichhornia. About Eichhornia we have studied so much times, right? They harm the native flora, they do not allow it to live. For Eichhornia, it spreads like very rapidly. Now what will happen? The other plants which are there in the water bodies, okay, they are not going to get enough sunlight. So are they going to photosynthesize? No. Are they going to die? Yes. Okay, and even what happens when this acorn and everything dies off, basically there is too much amount of problem that is being caused underneath. It leads to algal blooms and lots of other stuff which we definitely do not want. So water hyacinth, there is Eichhornia, lantana, and carrot grass, that is Parthenium. They are all invasive plant species. Now, illegal introduction of African catfish, that is Clarias garipinus, threatens the indigenous catfish. It has threatened the indigenous catfish which is there. So African catfish name is Clarias garipinus. Please remember the name. Remember the names of all these three things. So invasive plant species, the Nile perch, and also African catfish, Clarias garipinus. Okay. Now the this is the third reason. Now the fourth reason is co-extinction. That means there are certain organisms which tend to live together. For example, if we talk about wasp, fig tree and the wasp, and that the wasp is totally dependent upon this, fig tree is also dependent on this particular wasp, right? So if one of them basically they become extinct, what will happen? The other also slowly become extinct. This is known as co-extinction, because other one cannot survive without the one there. So loss of one species leads to extinction of dependent species which is there. Yeah, host first extinction leads to parasite extinction. For example, the parasite which is there in our body, okay, the lice would be there until human beings are there, right? Human beings, if they are not there, my dear children, they are also going to die. So host and parasite, they also have this thing. Co-evolved plant pollinator species also extinct together. Okay, the plant and the pollinator which have coexisted until now, they also have a chance for what? Extinction. So these are the 4 things which is why biodiversity loss can happen, which is why they are known as evil quartet, 4 evil things. Now, reasons for conserving biodiversity. Obviously, we should not be having a question like that, but still. So there are 3 views, okay, 3 reasons. So narrowly utilitarian reasons suggest that we should be saving biodiversity because of direct economic benefits like food, firewood, fiber, whatever is there, okay, medicinal property, all these things, my dear children. We should be taking care of it because of direct economic benefits. So medicinal value, 25% of the market drugs come from the plants, with 25,000 plant species used in traditional medicine. So potential future benefits from unexplored species, that is known as bioprospecting. Yeah, please remember this also. Okay, what do you mean by bioprospecting? The future benefits for unexplored species are known as bioprospecting. So we should be learning about that. So over here, I hope you got narrowly utilitarian reasons. Now, broadly utilitarian reasons is basically because of ecosystem services that they provide. For example, oxygen which we are breathing, okay, the oxygen which we are breathing, the pollination that is happening over here. Okay, so or the aesthetic reason, all these things, my dear children, comes under the broadly utilitarian point of view. So ecosystem services, the oxygen production by Amazon generates 20% of the earth's oxygen, pollination by bees, birds and bats, essential for fruits and seed production so that we can have it. Basically, not confused with this and this. This is of economic benefit. That is buying, taking and things like that. For that, okay, over here we're talking about ecosystem services. Okay, and then intangible benefits such as aesthetic and recreational value. For example, walk and everything. Okay, apart from that, people use all the resources for creating money as well. For example, there is a park. Everyone goes to the park. You charge 10 rupees to get enter into the park. So all this thing can also be coming. That will be coming on economic benefits. But yeah. Okay, that's not been mentioned there. So, in economic benefits comes food, firewood, fiber and everything that you get, the products that you get basically. And over here, the ecosystem services, the thing that is generally there, oxygen production, pollination and all the things. Now, ethical reasons, that is the best thing. All species have intrinsic value regardless of their economic importance. So, humans have a moral duty. We definitely have a moral duty to safeguard them, and that comes under ethical reasons. Okay. So these are the 3 reasons for conserving biodiversity. Now, suppose we have got the reasons. Now we have to conserve it. How can we conserve it? So there is in situ conservation and there is ex situ conservation. In situ conservation means I am going to conserve organism in their natural habitat. So in situ, that is on-site conservation. So protects the entire ecosystem to conserve biodiversity. Saving forests to save tigers, like that. Okay, biodiversity hotspots identified for maximum protection, 34 in total. Okay, so listen, there are biodiversity hotspots. You know how many in India? 34. 34. Okay, so 34 including Western Ghats, Indo-Burma and Himalayas in India. Sorry, I'm talking about general. Sorry. I'm talking about general thing. If you talk about biodiversity hotspots, there are 34 of them, and in that we include Western Ghats, Indo-Burma and Himalayas of India. Now, hotspots cover more than 2% of Earth's land but contain high species richness, my dear children. Okay, now there are, if you're talking about India's protected areas, there are 14 biosphere reserves, there are 90 national parks and there are 448 wildlife sanctuaries present in India. And apart from that, we also have one thing that is known as sacred groves. What do you mean by sacred groves? For example, I have some emotional connect with that area because of some of my religious reasons. Because of my religious reasons, and hence I decided I should be safeguarding that particular area. So when I am deciding that I should be taking care of that area, I am also going to take care of the organisms which are up there. In that way, we are basically saving them. So sacred groves mean traditional forest conservation that is there. Okay, and it is in different areas. You have to remember the names, very, very important. So Khasi and Janshe Hills is in Meghalaya, Aravali Hills is there in Rajasthan, Western Ghat is there in Karnataka and Maharashtra, Sarguja, Chanda and Bastar is there in Madhya Pradesh, and one more very important thing. In Meghalaya, the sacred groves are the last refuges for the large number of rare and threatened plants. This is the last refugee, as in the last option available for safeguarding what? The rare and the threatened plant species which are there. So in situ conservation, I hope you're done with that. Please remember the biodiversity hotspot, they are 34, including what? Your Western Ghats, Indo-Burma and Himalayas in India. And then if you talk about India, just about India, so 14 biospheres are there, biosphere reserves are there, 90 national parks are there, and 448 wildlife sanctuaries there. And apart from that, you have sacred groves, Khasi and Jaishe in Meghalaya, Aravalli Hills of Rajasthan, Western Ghats of Karnataka and Maharashtra, and Sarguja Chanda and Bastar of Madhya Pradesh. And in Meghalaya, this is our last option that is available for safeguarding the rare and the threatened plant species. Okay, this is about in situ conservation. We are conserving in them in their own habitat. Now, what is ex situ conservation? When we are conserving them in our area, okay, in the area that we want, we are protecting them outside their own habitat. Okay, so example, threatened species are removed from their natural habitats and protected in controlled environment because we feel that there are chances of what? Extinction. So example, zoo. You know zoo, right? So zoo is one thing where we go and meet the organisms up there. So it's not their natural habitat. We are putting them in cages and we are keeping them for safeguarding. So zoological parks, then you have botanical gardens for plants, my dear children. Then you have wildlife safari parks. Now this is different from wildlife sanctuary, please remember. Wildlife safari parks is there. So all of them, they maintain species outside their natural habitat. Now, apart from that, you have cryopreservation and everything, where what do? You are going to preserve the gametes. You are going to preserve the gametes of the threatened species which are there, and later you can fuse them in vitro in the laboratory condition. So cryopreservation is also a method of conservation, my dear children. And then later you can basically, you can take the help of tissue culture or basically IVF or whatever you want, depending on the organism which is there. If it's a plant, then tissue culture. If it's an animal, basically IVF and everything. Now there are seed banks as well. So seed banks store different genetic strains of important plants, my dear children. The seeds also are being preserved. In cryopreservation, you are going to preserve gametes over here. Seeds also can be preserved. So all these types are the types of ex situ conservation. Okay, so if at all question comes, which spot the ex situ conservation method, spot the in situ conservation method, you should be knowing which among them is what. So here and all, you are not preserving them in their natural habitat, which is why I'll just say it is ex situ conservation. Okay. Now, global efforts for biodiversity conservation was done. In 1992, Earth Summit was done in Rio de Janeiro. Nations urged to conserve biodiversity and use it sustainably. So it was done in Rio de Janeiro Earth Summit in the year 1992, and then followed by that in 2002 World Summit was done on sustainable development in Johannesburg. Please remember, okay, where over here 190 countries pledged to reduce biodiversity loss by 2010. It was done in Johannesburg. Please remember that. This World Summit on Sustainable Development. This is Earth Summit in Rio de Janeiro in 1992, 2002 World Summit on Sustainable Development in Johannesburg, and 190 countries pledged to what? Reduce biodiversity loss by the year 2010. Got it? So we started off this chapter like this. So we spoke about biodiversity, genetic diversity is there, species diversity is there, and ecological diversity is there. Okay, and then we spoke about the organism distribution. Remember, in the case of animals, we have insects in the highest amount. Okay, if you're talking invertebrates, we have fishes in highest amount. Okay, and invertebrates obviously insects only. And if you talk about plants in general, they have put in together. Basically, they're saying fungi is in more amount. Okay, now going ahead, we have patterns of biodiversity. Tropical regions have more diversity than the temperate regions because there is sun, there is less variation, seasonal variation that is there. Okay, and they have enough time. Basically, there is less disturbance also, which is why they have enough time for speciation, new species formation. Then we spoke about species area relationship, where you got a graph like this. Usually the graph is like this, where S is equals to C A to the power Z. Okay, this is area, this is species richness. If in log you get something like this. Then we spoke about what? Then we spoke about species diversity, importance of that. So David Tillman did his experiment where he said that more species diversity is there, that means more productivity, more stability, and everything will be there. Then rivet popper hypothesis was given by Paul Ehrlich, according to which he compared an aeroplane with ecosystem and rivets with basically the species which are there. Okay. Then human activities and extinction. So you saw Pacific Islands extinction, my dear children, where almost 2000 native birds were extincted because of human colonization. Apart from that, you have IUCN list. In the year 2004, they put down a red list, okay, and in that 784 species were being put to be extinct in 500 years. Apart from that, recent extinctions are there: dodo from Mauritius, okay, and then stellar sea crow from Russia. Then you have quagga from Africa, thylacine from Australia, and 3 tiger subspecies, that is Bala, Java and Caspian. Okay, then the evil quartet, the 4 reasons for biodiversity loss. First is habitat loss and fragmentation, and the second one is overexploitation. The example is stellar sea cow and the passenger pigeon. The third one is basically invasive species or alien species invasion, right? And over there Nile perch is there, which is going to harm the cyclid fishes. Okay, and then you had and these things, lantana, parthenium, and basically water hyacinth, that is Ecornia, which is plant invasive species. And the third thing was Clarius ganipinus, the African catfish, which was introduced, and because of that the actually indigenous fishes, catfishes, were dying extinct. Okay, now then we spoke, yeah, and also co-extinction is one more reason. So if one organism is totally dependent on the other organism, if one dies, other will also die. Now we have reasons for conserving biodiversity, narrowly utilitarian point of view, where you're taking for you're preserving for economic importance. Okay, you're making sure biodiversity is conserving because you have some economic importance from it. You need certain products from it, from the nature. Then there is broadly utilitarian when you say ecosystem, because you are preserving for ecosystem services such as oxygen production or pollination or things like that. Now ethical reasons, where because of your moral you're safeguarding it. Now in situ conservation, biodiversity hotspots are 34. In India we have western, you have a, what do you call it, where is it? Yeah, Western Ghats, Indo-Burma and Himalayan forest, which are there. And apart from that, you have in India, talking about India, 14 biosphere reserves are there, my dear children, 90 national park is there, and 448 wildlife sanctuary is there. Please remember, wildlife sanctuary is different from wildlife safari parks. Wildlife safari parks comes under ex situ conservation. Okay, and then sacred groves also, please remember, Khasi and Jainsheh hill of Meghalaya, Aravalli hills of Rajasthan, and Sarguja, Bastar and Chanda of Madhya Pradesh, very much important. Now ex situ conservation, you have zoological parks, you have botanical gardens, you have wildlife parks, okay, safari parks, you have cryopreservation, that is for gametes, and seed banks for seed. That's all. And also one more thing, the last thing, in Earth Summit was done in the year 1992, Rio de Janeiro, and 2002 World Summit on Sustainable Development in Johannesburg. And with that, we complete the chapter that is biodiversity and conservation. If you think you have any doubt, please put it down in the comment section. I went up a bit fast because this chapter should be completed within this much amount of time. You should not be giving too much time into it. If you are someone who faces difficulty in speed, I'll request you to put down the speed. You can control the speed in the bar, right? So please put it down if you're someone who is trying to understand. But I hope now there is no one who is studying this chapter for the first time, because KCET is over here and now you need revision. So this video is particularly for revision, my dear children. I think it was helpful for you. If it was helpful, do let me know. If you have any doubts, please let me know. I am here to solve all your doubts. Yeah, and wishing you good luck. Take care of yourself. You are going to ace it.